The watershed also has a prairie. A prairie is a type of grassland. Its name comes from a French word for meadow. You may have heard of the steppes in Asia, the pampas in South America, or the veldt in Africa. These are all types of grasslands too. Grasslands are the largest habitat in North America. Prairies usually form on level or smoothly rolling landscapes. These areas have dry or cold seasons that kill the plants. Most North American prairies are in locations with a low amount of annual rainfall. The prairies in Illinois receive enough rainfall to support trees, but frequent fires eliminate tree species before they can become established. Most of the land in the northern two-thirds of Illinois is flat. The movement of the glaciers through what is now Illinois shaped the land. 4 major glaciers have covered parts of Illinois during its past, the last about 12,000 years ago. One of the glaciers traveled almost as far south as the location of present-day Carbondale. Weather conditions in Illinois over thousands of years helped determine that prairies would exist in the state. Climate in prairies is characterized by hot, dry summers and cold winters. When these conditions developed about 8,300 years ago, the tall grass prairie became part of the Illinois landscape. Prairies are a mixture of grasses and forbs. Forbs are plants with soft stems and broad leaves, like wildflowers. Grasses have narrow leaves and soft stems. Grasses are the dominant plants in the prairie. To compete with grasses, some forbs have very deep roots that reach water and nutrients that grass roots cannot. Short forbs bloom early in spring before the grasses start growing, while taller forbs bloom later in the season. Prairies are classified as wet, mesic, or dry. Wet prairies hold a lot of water in the soil. Plants like cordgrass, mountain mint, and New England aster grow there. Mesic prairies are moist through much of the growing season. Big blue-stem black-eyed Susans, compass plants, and rattlesnake master are some of the plants in the mesic prairie. Dry prairies include the hill prairies and sand prairies where the soil drains rapidly. Little bluestem, lead plant, and purple prairie clover and rough blazing star are to be found in dry prairies. Fires occurred often on the original Illinois prairies, and because the ground was flat and unbroken by roads and other objects, they moved quickly and covered huge areas. Fire is important to prairie ecosystems. It removes the dead stems and leaves of the prairie plants without killing the roots. It returns nutrients to the soil quickly. Fire stops the growth of shrubs and trees by killing the living parts above the ground. These plants cannot grow back as easily from the roots as prairie grasses and forbs. Today, prescribed fire is usually used as a management tool for most prairies. In 1820, Illinois had 22 million acres of prairie land and 14 million acres of forest. Prairies were mainly in the northern two-thirds of the state, with forests in the southern one-third. All but 9 counties had large areas of prairie. In central Illinois, trees could only be found in scattered sites called prairie groves or along waterways. By 1900, most of Illinois' prairies were gone. The majority of these lands were converted to agricultural practices. By 1978, less than 2,300 acres of high-quality prairie remained in the entire state. Most of the undisturbed prairie sites today are found along roadway right-of-ways, in pioneer cemeteries, and in places that are not suitable for farming.
Different bees. There's honeybees, there's American bumblebees. Yeah. I think those are, there's another one right there. Those are larval forms of certain beetles. So they're babies of certain beetles.
Okay, I'm Tom Doyle, and I'm the Restoration Director at Watershed Nature Center, and I spend the majority of my time removing invasive species off of our properties and trying to encourage native vegetation to grow in its place. And it's probably a job that will never be done, but maybe we can get to the point where we're not spending all these hours and resource on getting things back to, I guess, as close to pre-settlement condition as we could get. We have an idea of what was growing back in those days, and so that's what we're trying to do, is get it back as close to pre-settlement vegetation as we can.